call to order the September meeting of the Finance Committee. We do have all four members of the committee here. Mr. McIntosh, Mr. Taylor, Ms. Adams, and myself. We also have council members Scipio, Munden, and Larson here. Thank everybody for being here today. We have a full agenda, so we will take the consent agenda first. Are there any items that anyone would want pulled from the consent? John?
Could you pull 6, 7, and 8, please?
C, 7, and 8. Come on around. Any?
I move for the balance of the agenda be approved.
We have a motion and a second to approve the balance of the consent agenda. Will the committee members please vote when it comes up? It never came up for me.
You're not special.
My,
You came up green.
I know that. Someone voted for me. That's what.
That's what friends are for.
See. We'll get that worked in the meantime. We will now do the two items that were pulled. If the city clerk will please read C7.
Item C7, resolution awarding purchase order for aerial ladder fire truck.
Mr. Larson, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's really more a procedural question, and probably 7 and 8 could be handled together, quite honestly. It has to do with procurement, the expenditure of money. Obviously, the truck that we're replacing is a 20-year-old truck, and I'm sure we made a lot of improvements in the fire department and fire trucks since then on the ladder trucks. But I'm curious about using a bid that's developed in Galveston, Texas, to procure a truck from a company that's in Virginia for Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Could somebody kind of explain to me the process we use and using on it?
Garrity, who would like to comment on this?
Our City County Purchasing Director, Chantel, will comment. Chief Mayo may also want to comment.
Did you hear the question?
I did.
You
Good
have the floor.
afternoon, Chairman and Mayor Pro Tem Adams and members of the committee. The procurement, the process in which we use to procure vehicles sometimes is incorporated with what they call a cooperative agreement, where we can use a cooperative agency that goes out and they do the competitive bidding, and then we're allowed to use those contracts where they've gotten these competitive pricing in order to procure the vehicles.
I understand that North Carolina legislation allows that use of other people's bidding process. I'm just curious if it's an equally bidding process for how it was bid in Texas as compared to how it would be bid in North Carolina, if there wouldn't have been a difference if we'd put it on the open market ourselves.
I think what we would have found, especially in this market, is that it would have been a higher price. Whenever you're able to use one of these cooperative bidding companies to get these costs, they're providing the same cost across states, across the United States. And when you're looking, within just North Carolina and putting it out, it tends to be more expensive.
How did we even find this bid that was in Texas? How did we find out that they bid on this fire engine?
We go online to the different agencies to see who has we'll go state, federal, to the different cooperative sites to see who has.
So we identify a product that we want. And
Yes.
spec it out.
Yes.
And then we do a search and see if anybody else has ordered that piece of equipment anywhere
That is
else.
correct. That is
Could be
correct.
it could be any number of companies that have that kind of equipment, but so other companies that get bid on by other cities, and we piggyback onto them.
Yes, it's an advantage actually to us, because like I said, we typically get the commodity cheaper than what we can if we just go open market and put it out for bid ourselves.
Well, I noticed that there's a lot of bids that we have on this agenda today that are very similar, and I just wanted to make clarity as to how we decide to use that process rather than going out on the market ourselves. I'm sure it's more expeditious, and I'll look for the fire chief to talk about the quality of the product we're getting at the Public Safety Committee that follows this one. I'm sure it's a lot better than what we're giving up.
We often use it, when we're procuring vehicles, really large vehicles. We use it when we're procuring some technology goods, because I think one of the items is Dell computers. So we typically use it there, and a lot of municipalities use it as well.
But just so the public knows, this is about a $1.8 million purchase for this one fire truck, so it's
Can
significant.
I ask the Chief Mayor to comment on what the truck is and how many people make $2
Good
million
afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council and committee. So one of the things, and I think, like all of you, I'm sure, I think fire trucks cost more than they should. Unfortunately, there are only about 8,000 fire apparatus constructed in the United States on an annual basis by 10 to 15 maybe reputable manufacturers, so there's absolutely zero economy of scale.
That's right.
They are truly custom built. I mean, when you open the door up on the driver's side of one of our pumpers or ladder trucks, it says custom built for the Winston-Salem Fire Department. Departments like ours have tried to buy what's called a commercial cab and chassis fire truck, where you'd have a Freightliner or International or something like that. They also build dump trucks and trucks for the highway department and this, that, and the other. And for a volunteer department that uses them 20 or 25 times a year, it does fine. But for us, at 26,000 calls a year, you get 5 or 6 years out of them, and that's all you get out of them. So these trucks that we buy are, they are built by welders and plumbers and electricians and craftsmen. And, it's taking right now about 22 months to get a ladder truck, which is what this is. So this will be a 100-foot platform, powered ladder on top, platform on the back for firefighters to work, 2 big heavy stream nozzles on it. And using this HGAC allows us to cut, about 2 months off the delivery, from time we say go until the time we take delivery. It at least cuts some of the time off of what has become a very extended time to take delivery of a fire truck.
We got 20 years out of the last one. Will we get that much out of this one?
Let me say that they don't build them like they used to.
Right.
They build them better, I'm sure. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you.
One more.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I would like to thank your department, purchasing, and where you do the procurement, fire department, public safety, to work with you. And basically, you work with every department in the city in itself, in the organization. And I know that your staff and you and other staff have to look at the numbers and the different contractors and the different ways that we buy things. I would like to think that over the years I've been here, and it's been 13, that we have gotten better, that we try to make sure that we do what's right, not just for Winston-Salem, but making sure that the equipment or anything that we purchase is of great quality and safety for the customers and employees that have to use it. So I want to thank you for your due diligence, you and your staff in your department, and you too, Chief. I'm not going to leave you out.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McIntosh had
I'm not sure who this question goes to, but is there salvage value in the truck that we're getting ready to replace?
Unfortunately, by the time we get ready to surplus them, so we will keep what this truck is replacing for several years as a reserve. But when after we're done with them, 160 or 70,000 miles of, a fire truck never gets a break. A dump truck, a log truck, they're empty some of the times. A fire truck never is. The value is primarily in the scrap metal.
So it's next likely service use could be hauling around beer drinkers in some city.
Or it might be the beer can.
Yeah.
Okay, thank y'all. John, C8 was the same item.
CA is going to be, I have nothing to add.
Can I get a motion on to move C7 and C8?
We did just.
We do have a motion by Ms. Adams, second by Mr. Taylor. Committee will vote when it comes up. That is approved. Thank you very much. That is the consent agenda. We will now move to the general agenda. Bear with me. G1, if the city clerk will please read G1.
Item G1, consideration of items related to a contribution to the Film Partnership of North Carolina's Workforce Development Initiative in Winston-Salem.
Mr. Rowell, will you please give us 2 minutes on this?
Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tempore Adams, members of the City Council. So this item first came before the Finance Committee back in June. This is a request from the Film Partnership of North Carolina for $100,000 to fund a workforce training program specifically to help build up the production workforce here in Winston-Salem and the region. I'd like to first recognize Susie Hamilton, who's the president of the Film Partnership of North Carolina, Lauren Vilchik, who's with the UNC School of Arts, School of Filmmaking, and also Rebecca Clark, who's the executive director of the Piedmont Triad Film Commission. At the meeting in June, there was questions from council about the missions of the two organizations, and just very briefly, just wanted to note that the Film Partnership of North Carolina, their focus is on workforce development and building a production workforce, whereas with the Piedmont Triad Film Commission, their focus is on promoting and marketing the region for productions, but also marketing and promoting the production workforce that we already have here. So the two are complementary in that sense. So the request before you today is for $100,000. The partnership would utilize those funds over the course of the next 3 years to help create these cohorts to train and prepare folks to be in the production workforce. Funds would come from our local economic development project fund reserves. And just as a note, that the agreement that we would enter into with the Film Partnership would establish metrics for how the funds would be used to support residents in Winston-Salem and the region. Would require regular reporting on the use of those funds. And so I'll be happy to answer any questions, or Ms. Hamilton can answer any specific questions.
Mr. Rowell, the question that came up and why it was extended is this money going to help people in Forsyth County?
Yes, sir. I'll recognize Ms. Hamilton.
If you give your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Chairman, Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Good afternoon.
And the rest of the committee. My name is Susie Hamilton. I live at 206 Nunn Street in Wilmington, North Carolina. If you want, I will just dive right into the question. Yes, 100% of the funds would be spent in Forsyth County, predominantly within the Winston-Salem city limits, to fund workforce development program, hiring interns from Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, and placing them on active productions also within Winston-Salem, Forsyth County.
Thank you. If I can ask, Ms. Clark, could you come up? By the way, we're in no relationship. Are you comfortable that these funds will be used for the benefit of the citizens?
Yes, that is why I'm in support of it.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that Winston-Salem citizens and/or Forsyth County was going to directly benefit from these funds.
Thank you. Ms. Adams.
Yes, and I hear Councilmember Clark saying Forsyth County, but this is not Forsyth County money. This is Winston-Salem money, like Wilmington money. So I need you all to understand that. I'm gonna support it, but I'm gonna be checking it, checking once and checking twice, because this is the taxpayers of Winston-Salem. But as one of the things that I stress to everyone in the world we live in now, is for our children and younger people in the city, the inner city of Winston, if we don't show them something different, if we don't put out there that they can have different experiences in their life, as well as opportunity, then their lives won't change. And they will stay apart, for the most part, the ones that live in poverty, the same old hamster cycle. So I'm looking to do anything that I can do to promote exposing my young people in the inner city to a better life or experience somewhere. You probably know we had the professional bull riders here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and most of us went. I was there yesterday. I'd said in my Facebook post, we asked Richard Childress and Vineyards to, you bring in all of this to town, but most of the kids that live in the inner city, they don't know nothing about this. They don't watch rodeos and stuff like we do or did on, growing up. And they did. They contributed 100 tickets as well as food for inner city youth, okay? If we don't expose them to something different, where does the choices of life and opportunity, the path comes? Do I go this way or do I do that? So I'm looking for you guys. Again, theater was my minor, communication was my major. I know what all of this can do for a child because I grew up poor, first person to graduate in my family from college. I know what it can do. So I'm happy to support this, Chair Clark, whenever the motion is made.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Just if you would speak briefly to maybe the education level that's required for this program. I know people in the IATSE who have a master's degree in design and production, and I know some who are high school dropouts.
That's the beauty of a program like film, television, and live performing arts production. I too did a lot of theater, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, as I was coming along as well, all the way through college. So I understand your passion. So our education levels, first and foremost, we only take candidates that are 18 years or older. Our target candidate is from a historically underserved community. And that would include historically underserved communities within the actual film, television, and live theater production industries. So we typically will look to someone who has an interest but not enough experience to actually become a member of IATSE. So the intention is to place people that have shown an interest, and some may have, they may have training and experience just in the theater themselves, or they could have experience at the School of the Arts and the film school. They could have experience at Winston-Salem State University, excuse me. And and so they can come from a lot of different channels. One of the things that we've done is to very intentionally reach out to other community organizations where there may be a connection, some cultural arts or video arts, digital arts relationship or function, mission, if you will, and outreach is done to those locations. I'm happy to report that most of the cohorts that have come through in the other pilot program have come to us through all of those resources, and many of them have just shown up and knocked on the door to show an interest. And 40% of the cohort that we've put through already is from historically underserved communities. So we're excited about bringing this program to Winston-Salem. We've done basically a proof of concept with the pilot program, and we believe that we've had a fair amount of success, and we certainly want to duplicate that, not only in Winston-Salem, but in other parts of the state as well. But we congratulate you all on being interested in this and understanding its value long-term in creating that pipeline.
Thank you. Mr. Larson?
Yes, thank you. I think it's very exciting, but could you give me some clarity on the trades that are going to be involved? Is it catering? Is it carpentry?
Yes.
Is it acting? Is it what is the
Think of it as
scope?
everything behind the camera. Everything that happens behind the camera.
And who are the instructors for all this?
Well, that's the other benefit of having a group like the North Carolina School of the Arts, is that they are a group of instructors here that are just naturally already in place. And the first thing we do in our instruction is make sure that they understand the safety standards and that they understand what basic set readiness is. Understanding what some of the basic equipment is, understanding how to avoid cables, understanding how to wrap cables, things of that nature. But no one in front of the camera is considered in this, and it's no one that would be at a professional level within their respective trade. We make sure that each production is fully staffed with professionals to protect our interns' safety and to protect our efforts in DEI recruitment. So they're very well vetted, and we don't put a program in place where there aren't instructors that are already naturally there as part of your infrastructure, and you've got that.
Were they awarded a certificate?
No, what they are given is a resume builder, and after they are finished with this intern program, the goal is for them to be qualified to move into a more professional position, join an IATSE or a related union if that is what their interest level is. Typically, people that go through a production, a 6-10 week production, it's pretty grueling, you know really quickly whether or not you're cut out for this kind of work. 12, 14-hour days, 7-day work weeks. It's for a short period of time, but it is an intense period of time. And so most people will weed themselves out, and if they hang in there and they get through it, they typically will move on into this profession, and they'll be prepared to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Can I get a motion?
Yes, ma'am, I'd like to make a motion to approve item G1, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve G1. If the folk, y'all can sit down, thank you. Part of your 15 minutes of fame. You were on TV. And that is approved. Thank you very much. We will now go to G2.
Item G2, consideration of items relating to Winstonnet and the Forsyth County Digital Equity Committee pilot program.
Ms. Martin, if you please
Yes, sir.
introduce this topic to us.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Chair Clark, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee and council. Meredith Martin, Deputy Director of Budget and Performance Management. This is an action item related to the American Rescue Plan Act framework that was endorsed in 2021. As part of the framework, funds were earmarked for the digital divide initiatives within our community. Last month, City Council held a special meeting related to ARPA funding, and during that meeting, the Forsyth County Digital Equity Committee presented a pilot program requesting $2 million of these earmarked funds. The proposed pilot program includes several technology build-outs, such as a computer, art, and music lab, smart boards, and an updated specialty computer technology center at the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center. Services to be offered include technology and digital literacy training, digital equity and internet training, and job seeker training. This project will also provide internet-ready devices to at least 1,250 city residents. The population is marginalized communities as well, marginalized communities within the QCTs of our community. If approved, the city would enter into a contract with Winstonnet to perform this program. The city's Chief Information Officer, Tom Koreska, is here, as well as Lakeisha Jordan, the Executive Director of Winstonnet, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Martin, I had a comment, and we actually voted on it earlier to buy new Dell computers for the city in the consent. We surplus hundreds of computers a year, maybe, and I was wondering if those would be made available to folks that...
I'll look to Mr. Koreska to answer
All
that.
right.
Yeah, no problem.
Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem.
And this may be outside of this program, but I just know we surplus hundreds of computers a year, it seems like.
Yeah, the Dell you're referring to are actually being purchased by Winston-Salem PD.
Okay.
And my department does not install those, but we work closely with PD. We meet every Monday morning to have management meetings. I'm aware of the purchase. I can't answer the question as far as what's surplusable from what they're replacing. I can tell you that the reason they're surplusing many of them is replacing many of them is because of the Windows upgrades and the security patches they've not been able to apply to the current devices. So they're older devices they're replacing.
Okay. I would just say as a general comment, as we surplus stuff, it may be good to look at to see if some of it might be available.
We do some in information systems as well, phones, iPads, devices, but typically we use them so long that there's not a lot of value to them.
I'm sitting here, I feel sure this is at least a 4-year-old iPad. And
No.
I'm looking
Anyway.
to my friend Dana, but yeah.
Go ahead, Ms. McIntosh.
I think one of the concerns also is that you want to make sure whatever you're putting in the hands of a user is something that will be able to allow them to utilize high speed and to utilize, the latest software. So you don't want to give a product that is essentially, not going to get the job done.
Yeah, for our project, the Forsyth County Digital Equity Project, we're looking at new devices. We're looking at either Chromebooks, kind of because of what the school system's doing, but also Windows devices, and they will be new, and we have no intention of purchasing any surplus from PD.
Now, Tom, you know my background in computer hardware. I probably want to talk with you just to see if there's an opportunity to get more bang for the buck.
Understood.
All right, thank you.
Any other?
Yes, thank you,
Mr.
Chair
Adams.
Clark. I want to say thank you to the whole team, the county and the city, and Winston-Salem staff and county staff, Winstonnet, and all of the partners working on this. We know that we have seen this happening and just getting worse, and it was even before COVID. COVID just made it happen that the children couldn't go to school and they couldn't learn. And then we find out that throughout the qualified census tracts, mostly in the city and some in the county, that, they were saying, well, we're going to do a virtual school. Nobody had the plan for that. And I would like to think that that has partly caused our children to fall so far behind going into 2022 as well. As Mr. Councilman McIntosh and Clark said, I do know that the city has always utilized, as you know, whenever we have the auctions and things, and we do work with our nonprofit partners to collaborate and see whatever materials that we have or resources that they can benefit from if they don't have it. But as you said, technology changes so fast now. And if you're using an older phone or iPad or anything, if it doesn't keep up with today's internet speeds, then you're going to sit there and look at that what is it, the little spinning, that's what you're going to be doing. But I want to thank you all, and Mr. Chair, if it's in order, I'd like to make a motion.
Guys, real quick, there's 30-plus agencies supporting this project, but I'd like to at least recognize Lakeisha Jordan with Winstonnet, Layla Garms with Winston Foundation, Darley Dully with the Housing Authority. These three ladies have been very key to getting this proposal where it is, so I want to recognize them.
Thank you.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second on this. Please vote when it comes up. That is approved. Thank you very much. We will now go to the next item. If the clerk will please read G3.
Item G3, resolution approving the sale of city-owned land by private sale to the arts-based school.
Mr. Rao, I know we discussed this a month or so ago, but if you'll please reintroduce it so it's fresh in everyone's mind.
Yes, sir, Chairman Clark. So in recent years, the arts-based school has experienced significant growth, and they currently have a wait list of between 400 and 500 students. They've recently entered into a lease with the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School Board to lease space at the former Diggs Elementary School, and have started a K through 1 grades there this school year. But in addition to that, they are looking to expand their campus there to eventually include a middle school. And so requests came before this committee last month. It was an information item for the city to sell 8.91 acres located west of the former Diggs Elementary School to the arts-based school to help them to further develop their campus. It was noted at the time that this particular tract of land has been identified as a potential site for affordable housing, so that was presented to the Finance Committee at the time. Under state statute, the city can't donate land to a nonprofit organization, so we would be looking to sell this land to the arts-based school at a nominal price, $1. That's the resolution that's before you all today, is to sell this 8.91 acre tract to the arts-based school for $1. At the meeting last month, there were questions from council members about the demographics of the students, the staff, and the board. Also, there were questions about the lottery process that they would use to enroll the students into the grades there at the former Diggs School. That information was included in this particular action item. As part of the purchase agreement that the city would draft, if it's approved by council, there would be, we would retain a deed restriction on the property for 30 years to ensure that the property is being used for the public purpose for which we are selling it, which is for educational programs. At the end of the 30-year term, the city would release the deed restriction, assuming that the terms of the agreement have been met. Griff Morgan, who's been working very closely with the Arts-Based School, is here today to answer any questions you have about the Arts-Based School's plans for that 8.91 acres, and also if you have any questions about the demographic information or the lottery process that they provided to you all.
Okay. Any questions right at this moment? Come on up, sir. Is there any comments you would like to add?
Thank you, Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Councilmember Taylor, and McIntosh. I think the most important thing to add is that we started this process of looking to expand to a second campus 5 years ago. When we realized that Diggs may be a possibility, a former historically African-American school in a community where housing had been disrupted and torn down, we waited a long time to find and try to put our second campus in that Diggs campus for several reasons. One, we think that a school enriches a neighborhood and a community, and we wanted to see Diggs come back to life as an educational center and not simply a place where items were being stored by the school system. Also, it is very close to Winston-Salem State University and very close to the North Carolina School of the Arts, and we wanted to create a partnership with those two institutions, one with the School of the Arts to build an after-school, community-wide youth education program that would give people the opportunity to learn music, to learn theater, to learn dance, in a place that was equally central to the Latinx community, the African-American community, and the white community. And so Diggs was a perfect location to build that partnership. The School of the Arts Chancellor, Brian Cole, is on board. He has built a very similar community-wide program in Puerto Rico where he taught before coming here, and he has the knowledge and ability to build that kind of community-based education program. We have added several people from the Winston-Salem State's Education Department to our board because we want to work with them on creating a better teacher education program that can fund teachers coming back into the Winston-Salem State public school system. And so this thought about using Diggs and being in that location was not just an opportunity, but it was really a place that we worked hard to get to because of the way we thought it could serve the city. Diggs, as you may know, lost a whole arm of its school when 52 was expanded, and so now it is not large enough to do the things that we want to do, which is to grow from a K1, K2 school to a K through 8 school. And this additional land of almost 9 acres would allow us to create the kind of dance studios, theater studios, music studios that in collaboration with the School of the Arts would allow us to do an after-school and weekend education program in those, as well as serve the school. So we're hoping that it's a facility that is used not just during the school day, but in the afternoons and the weekends, and that's what we're envisioning.
The demographics you have are for the current art-based school, is that correct?
The current arts-based school, which now has 2 campuses, it has what we call the North Campus on Martin Luther King, which has a K through 8 school, and then just opened in August, we opened 2 kindergarten classes and 2 first grade classes in the lower wing of Diggs. So we're operating there.
You are there now, okay. All right.
And it includes both.
Okay, any questions? Miss Carmen, our attorney, has a comment.
Yes, I would like for Attorney Morgan to clarify for the committee the entity that will actually hold title to the land if this is approved.
Yes, and I was slow in talking to Mr. Rowe about this, but charter schools are not allowed to hold real property by statute. So there is an organization, a 501c3 organization called the Arts-Based School Supporting Organization, which we use to raise funds outside the normal school curriculum and which can hold real property. So if the council would approve this, it would be titled in the Arts-Based School Supporting Organizations. And I can provide Ms. Carbon and Ms. Rowe our organizational documents and bylaws if that would be helpful.
Ms. Carmen, does that create any special issues for us?
Of course, the entity that buys the property would be required to adhere to the restrictions, but I think we also would have to involve the school somehow to make sure that it's clear that all involved parties have to adhere to the restrictions, but we'll work it out if it's approved.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Let me make a comment. As chair, I have done some county noses, and the committee is somewhat divided on this. The issue, primary issue from the committee standpoint is do we use this for housing or schools? Having said that, I'm not sure I even have the votes to move it from committee.
I need a comment when you finish, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so at the appropriate time, I'm going to suggest that we move it forward without recommendation and let the full council vote. And Ms. Adams had a comment, then Mr. Mundy.
Yes, thank you, Chair Clark. Again, Mr. Morgan, you know we go way back, and some of the rest of you as well. I have, again, when entities, organizations, nonprofits, businesses come to the council, as I always tell them, I don't have a problem with what you're trying to do. I have the problem with that as a council member representing the people of Winston-Salem, and I was born near Diggs. I lived on Southbound. It's not there. Highway 52 took that away. But the thing with me is I've been on this council 13 years. And this land, just like other lands in our city right now with this housing crisis, is set aside for housing. And that's what, my heart is with that. I believe that once again, you tell the community that we're gonna do housing. And anybody that knows anything about that particular land, if you're on top of it, they got some of the best views in the city. Most of our neighborhoods, black and poor neighborhoods, we don't have that kind of variety of mountains and greenery, and you can look out and you can see all the way downtown and across town. We don't have that because of construction. What I'm saying again is I applaud you all and anybody, because I'm a big proponent of education. Nobody on this council can say that I'm not. But right now, D.D. Adams is in the fast lane of trying to create some houses for people to stay in. And I know the argument may be that, well, we need the schools. We need to make sure that the children have somewhere to go to school. Again, I have no issue with it. But I'm going to stand with what I believe in and what I have been with for 13 years and before. And Attorney Morgan, you know this. I've been a proponent of housing and community development since the 80s, and I'm not going to back down off that. Thank you, Chair Clark.
Mr. Mundy.
No, I didn't have a question.
Okay, Mr. McIntosh.
Yeah, I'm going to echo Mayor Pro Tem's comments. So we have to go through, and we do community agency funding every year. We have to pick amongst a slew of very worthwhile groups to fund. ARPA, we have to sort of, go through and again, pick and choose amongst quite a few very reputable, very worthwhile groups. But housing has been our stated priority goal now for years and years. And as wonderful as this would be as a school property, it really does fall into our sweet spot in terms of what works as housing. So I'll just leave it at that.
With that, go ahead. Anyway.
Respond for a minute.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams, I don't know in 2 minutes whether I'm going to change your longstanding views or not, but I'm going to give it a try. I think what we are talking about here, and I absolutely agree with you. Most of the land in Happy Hill should be devoted to housing, and it should be devoted to housing that goes back to the historic community that has been there. You and I have no disagreement on that. I think having a school in that community is of utmost importance. I think also having not just a school, but having a program, a community-based program that brings together Winston-Salem State and the School of the Arts and a public charter school together to help serve that local community and the broader community around that will make that community more vibrant than a few additional houses on that lot. Now, like I said, I'm not sure I can convince you in 2 minutes, but I would offer to you and to any members of this council to come take a tour of the schools that we have. Come walk through us with us, see what we're doing with these children, and see if that helps change your mind. So I have an invitation to all of you to come visit our school.
As I mentioned earlier, I would like to just have a motion to move this forward with that recommendation.
So move.
And have the council voted up or down.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Everyone, and by the way, for you folks out there, only the committee votes at this level. But everyone will get a chance to vote.
And they need to understand, Chair Clark, that we're only voting to move it forward.
Yeah, we're simply moving it forward to the full board. If not, it would sit in the committee forever. And I will say, now that we've voted to, I'm assuming we voted. Everybody vote? Mr. Taylor, have you voted?
I have.
Yep.
Oh, okay, we got it. I will just make a comment now that I will not influence the vote. I don't have any trouble building a school there. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of empty lots in Happy Hills. We've got years' worth of house building we can do over there. And I truly believe a premier school would make that an attractive place to live. But it doesn't make sense to build a school unless you build it beside the existing school that you're adding on to. Whereas, as I said, we could build 50 or 60. I don't. Anybody in the room know how many empty lots there are in Happy Hills? 95? Is that the number I heard? Yes. Okay, 95. And that's single family. Now, there's some HUD issues out there which we're dealing with, but I think we could have a nice school addition and 95 new homes. But I will let the mayor deal with that. And by the way, the next meeting of the council is Monday next week at 7 o'clock in this room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the last item is G4.
Item G4, information on financial assistance to SG Atkins CDC for the purchase of property for revitalization.
This is for information only.
That's correct,
Bill,
Chairman
you going to
Clark.
present this?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and members of council.
Good afternoon.
As Chairman Clark mentioned, this is an information-only item. The property that we're talking about is 1539 Walltown Street, which you can see here. The Simon Green Atkins Community Development Corporation, or the Atkins CDC, is a nonprofit organization focused on revitalizing neighborhoods surrounding Winston-Salem State University. As you also know, the city has previously partnered with the CDC on the Enterprise Center, which is on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, as well as the implementation of the East End Master Plan. The CDC has approached the city for possible financial assistance to acquire and revitalize the abandoned Nissan Wagon Works property located at the address here. After serving as Nissan's manufacturing center, it transitioned to a Western Electric facility through the 1990s and has since been abandoned and fallen into disrepair. The potential project is in its early stages, which is why it is an information item this afternoon, with details to be determined. The CDC envisions the first phase to activate approximately 96,000 square feet into co-warehousing space. This would provide multiple businesses with the opportunity to use shared warehouse space without having to purchase or lease an entire building, providing flexibility for small businesses to grow their warehouse space needs as their business grows. This project could accomplish the goal of revitalizing an abandoned property by providing increased investment, job opportunities for those in the area, and decreasing blight. Several issues remain to be navigated, including a facility assessment, rezoning assessment, and evaluating environmental mitigation. Any federal involvement, such as brownfields assistance, would require a review by the State Historic Preservation Office to determine if the project would have an adverse effect. Ms. Carol Davis, who is Executive Director of the Atkins CDC, is here. She has a presentation for the committee.
Okay, Ms. Davis. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. I'd have welcomed you earlier. Please come up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Clark.
Give your name and address for the record.
Carol Davis, Executive Director of Atkins CDC, 1922 South Martin Luther King Jr. Drive in Winston-Salem.
Thank you, ma'am.
Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and members of the committee. I am here today because I believe this property represents an opportunity for our emerging entrepreneurial ecosystem, not just for co-warehousing space, but for co-working space and for adaptive reuse of a site that has obviously been in disrepair for a long time. As Ken mentioned, the Nissan Wagon Works site was there for many years, made a lot of money. Westinghouse was there, made a lot of money. And it was followed by other corporations and businesses who were there and then moved away and left this eyesore in the Southeast Ward. What we propose to do is work with the city, of course, and other organizations, including those with access to brownfield dollars and construction funds. We've had success with Economic Development Administration and other funders that would help us bring this building back into the leasable square footage. And so currently, it is a 9-acre space owned by a private for-profit owner who purchased it last year. And he purchased it from another for-profit owner. And both of them, after reviewing the site in detail, determined that it was this deal had some hair on it, so to speak. It was a little more than these for-profit developers wanted to get involved with, because primarily, before you could lease any of it, you need to go in and do remediation. I have a lot of pictures here. I'm not sure exactly
Can you point out what part of what buildings we're talking about here with your pointer there?
I'm sorry?
Can you point out what buildings we're talking about? I see you got a pointer
Yes.
there.
So I'll show you here. This is the historic site as it existed. And then this photo here, you can kind of see this part right here where I've moved in the cursor is where the roof has already fallen in and this has been demolished. Was there a fire? It wasn't a fire. It was ice and snow on top of the roof, then it collapsed. Yes. Right here is the police station. Right here is the post office. And here is warehouse space that we believe can be adaptively reused. This adjoining is additional warehouse space. So there's about 30,000 square feet in there and another 25,000 square feet there. And then this space here is a space that we would like to reuse as a food truck commissary. And then this little spot here could be an open air cafe. Over in this area, there's more building that needs to be demolished. And there's also a historic smokestack, similar to the smokestack down at Innovation Quarter that we believe is an architectural point of interest. I have the exact square footages here. I didn't tell you all of them because in total there's 96,300. So let me see. In here, there's a total of 37,000. Then over here, we've got a total of 49,000. So between all of the existing space that we would like to adaptively reuse, there is 96,000 square feet.
Okay.
So what we've seen in other communities, ways that communities are using these spaces, and this is what it currently looks like. Has anyone been on Wildtown Street lately? You're familiar with how it looks. This is kind of from the side, from the back, and this is the interior. So the current owner has done some upfit inside the buildings in terms of just getting the electricity in all of the warehouse spaces again, making sure that the roof doesn't leak on most of the square footage. This is an example of where they've actually set up some shelving that could be used for storage. And it's really massive and very impressive inside in size when you go inside. But obviously you can see there's some repair and some construction that would need to be done. But that's after the remediation. So what we found that's very exciting, and the reason I'm excited about this space is, in 2015, we had community meetings and did a lot of brainstorming with community members about what this space could be. In 2016, a landscape architecture class from North Carolina A&T spent a semester on this project and came up with a lot of suggestions, including housing, restaurant space, recreational space, medical clinic, community garden, et cetera. And then when we met the current owner, his name is Daryl McCall. He's into leasing warehouses. And he bought it and thought that he could quickly lease this 96,000 square feet for about $3 a foot, and make about $300,000 a year in revenue and or $25,000 a month. And that caught my attention in a way that none of the other planning sessions had, because I said, well, if this space is reusable and can generate that kind of revenue, then of course we'd have the cash flow to do any of these other projects on the surrounding space where the old demolition will have to occur and cleanup of what has already been demolished. So if you keep that in mind, that there is a strong revenue generating potential here, it makes this whole site a little more attractive, at least in my mind. And so what's happening in other cities, and here's the breakdown of the space. Are projects like the loading dock in Raleigh, where the owner is offering Wi-Fi workspace for packaging and delivery and shipping, heated warehouse space, loading docks, temperature-controlled pallet jacks, hand trucks, et cetera. And this serves the many businesses that were formed during COVID, where we had an explosion in e-commerce. A lot of entrepreneurs turned to e-commerce because, of course, face-to-face retail pretty much shut down. And there's a growing trend with Amazon and Shopify and other e-commerce entities that are helping leverage these small independent businesses to grow and actually make money globally as they introduce products to the market through these large e-commerce platforms. In Raleigh, this is what the loading dock looks like on the outside. They have plenty of outdoor usable space for the public and for those who rent co-warehousing space inside. They also have co-working space inside. And in this particular instance, they allow users to have flexible sized spaces for storage, packaging, shipping, and even co-working. And they use chain link fence in this part of the building to create these private, secured spaces. And these people pay monthly. Some of them have short-term leases, some of them have 12-month leases, and some longer. And as you can see, people are doing business. This is an entrepreneurial facility, and it's very popular. This particular developer has done 5 spaces in Raleigh. Started with 1, was very well received, and they quickly expanded to add more. I had some additional slides, but this kind of model is popping up at Camp North End in Charlotte. That's a massive space where they're going to develop approximately, I think, 1 million square feet of space in what was once an industrial site. There's other models in Atlanta, New York, LA, other cities around the country, and it's something that is growing in popularity. And similarly, you know, even if someone's just using it for storage, we know that the self-storage industry is one of the most best performing real estate assets that we've had in the country for the last few years. So whether it's co-working, co-warehousing, or self-storage, all under one roof, I feel like there's strong market support and a lot of interest in this kind of project. It would be a hub for the Southeast Ward. You know, we envision using the indoor space and the outdoor space for events, in addition to the workshops and entrepreneurial support that we already provide at the Enterprise Center, where we have a Small Business Administration Women's Business Center. We have a new relationship with the county's IDA program. We have our relationship, of course, with Winston-Salem State Center for Entrepreneurship. We would combine all of these resources that we currently have at our disposal and translate that over to this new space. We'd, of course, bring on partners who want to work with us, but in order of getting the work done, we'd have to start with the remediation. So we'd have to have site control. We'd have to work closely with the brownfield environmental quality folks. This is already a site where Phase 1 and Phase 2 work has been done. The Phase 1 work is kind of outdated, but the Phase 2 was just finished in June of 2022. So we'd have to get site control. We'd have to work on cleaning up the brownfield issue. We would demolish what's not usable here and clean that up, make the space just look better to start with. And then when these spaces here are usable, we would immediately start leasing them to generate some of the revenue that I believe is possible.
Okay. Any questions at this point? Mr. McIntosh.
Not a question, but a comment. I guess sort of a question. I was down in Spartanburg, South Carolina. We went down with the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce to look at how that area prepared for the arrival of Michelin and BMW down there, and kind of what some of the spinoffs were. They have a little bit different model, but the building is amazingly similar to what we're looking at here. Mm-hmm. And they're more of an entrepreneurial startup hub. But it just strikes me as this is space that in the real estate market here in Winston is incredibly difficult to find. Mm-hmm. Small spaces. I mean, if you can go pay for a new tilt-up, building, that's fine. But if you're looking for small to mid-size spaces to run your shipping, receiving, or even light industrial stuff out of it, it's really, really difficult to find. So, I mean, I think this is a real market opportunity.
Thank you. Ms. Davis, I think as a next step, I just wrote down some notes here. We would need to know, at least environmental issues. You mentioned brownfield issues and maybe asbestos, I don't know. But the big question is, what's it going to cost to acquire the property and to do everything you got to do to it? So I think that would be the next step that we'd be looking at.
Right. And so the reason we did not present any concrete numbers here today is because there has not been a complete assessment of the building envelope. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to give you a $2.5 million number without knowing if something else would be uncovered in a full inspection. As I mentioned, there has been a Phase 1 and a Phase 2. So that is a little more clear in terms of what we have to contend with, mm-hmm. but I don't have multiple proposals to compare one to another. But the brownfield remediation and then getting a real handle on the building envelope, demoing what needs to be demoed, cleaning up, making it all just look more attractive from the street while we get this other part leased. I could throw out a number, but I don't want you to hold me to it.
I need a good number.
So I'm not going to throw it out.
And I would suggest you're working with Mr. Keith. Where'd you go? Oh, Ken, excuse me. he's the man to work with, so I would suggest, unless I hear to the contrary, that y'all continue to work. But I think we need a very valid number because working with old buildings can be expensive.
Right, well, I would love if you just set something aside, don't give all the money away, because we'll be coming back, right?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe that's the last item, City Clerk. With that, Mr. Larson, did you have a comment?
I just had a question about Winstonnet. I think the building was 1830 something, the original building. And was it listed as a contributing structure for the National Register District, Walltown District, and does it still have that designation? We know, for tax credit purposes?
I don't think much of the original building is left. I think
That's what I'm.
I think that's what
Standing is
Sarah
mostly-
fell in on.
If it's lost the designation.
But those are all the questions we need to answer. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. A lot of y'all here, I hope we got your questions answered. With that, we will adjourn, and public safety will commence at 6 o'clock at its normal time. We're adjourned.